In June of 2019, a brand new play area was opened for children in Cater Park, a park located within Kidbrooke Village, South East London. Kidbrooke Village sits within the borough of Greenwich and is described as one of London's most significant new housing-led developments. A £1 billion regeneration, transforming the area into a new community, offering affordable homes and most of all, a safe living space for all residents. But when summer of 2021 was coming to a close, some news broke that would send shockwaves throughout the local community, which in turn would break international news. And those children and parents who shared a laugh, shared a core memory back only 2 years prior in June of 2019, would be horrified at what had just happened only a stone's throw away. Ladies and gentlemen, a man, a sadist, had been lurking in the shadows, ready to cause destruction upon any female he came across. And sadly for primary school teacher Sabina Nessa, it was her. Born in London but raised in sandy Bedfordshire, just north of the capital, Sabina Nessa was always destined for greatness. Described as a beautiful, kind soul, she always looked out for other people's interests before her own. She wanted to make a real change in the world, so she decided to become a teacher to bring up the next generation of children so they too could go on to achieve greatness in wherever their life may take them. After graduating with a sociology degree from the University of Greenwich in 2014, she moved on to the University of Bedfordshire, where she gained a PGCE teaching certificate in 2020. Now having all the tools in her bag to start following her dreams of teaching, she wanted to first start out in the UK, but had aspirations of teaching children in the Middle East, where after decades of teaching she would eventually retire and presumably live out the rest of her days there. Within months, Sabina had gained employment at the Rushy Green Primary School in Catford, South East London, where she taught a Year 1 class, but there was one issue. Well, at least from the research I've done anyway, I believe she was still living in Bedfordshire. If not Bedfordshire, then I'm unsure exactly where, but I don't believe, again, she'd been living in London at that point. So nearly 1 year to the date of her gaining her dream job, Sabina finally decided to pack her bags to move to the big city, where she could commute to work much easier. For her, Astor Road was where she now called home. She'd just moved to Kidbrooke Village. It was a rough 20-minute drive to work. The area was relatively safe, the people were nice, life was good, everything was going according to plan. On the 17th of September 2021, however, that was all due to change. You see, Sabina wanted to let her hair down after a long week at work. She wanted to go out for the night, for drinks, so she arranged to meet a friend at the depot bar in Kidbrooke Village. The bar was literally across the other side of the village. It was on a front doorstep. We're talking a 10-minute walk if that. That is if you take the shortcut through Cater Park. Sabina told friends she avoided it, fearing for the safety of herself. To no surprise at all, given the rise in attacks on women across the capital. One big case that had only happened months prior was the kidnap, rape and murder of Sarah Everard by none other than Metropolitan Police Officer Wayne Couzens. But in a sad twist of fate on this one specific night in September, she decided to take that route through the park. She was running late. She never arrived at the bar. On the 14th of September 2021, then 35-year-old car mechanic Kosi Selamaj had booked a hotel room at the Grand Hotel in Eastbourne for the 17th. Kosi had been married at the time to 45-year-old Ayanella Gergesan, but the couple had split in August of 2020 after 3 violent outbursts towards her over a short space of time. The latest incident prompting Ayanella to leave was when Kosi had strangled her severely, to the point where she nearly died. That, ladies and gentlemen, had been over her not picking up his calls while she was working a double shift at that very same hotel he would go on to book a room for the 17th. We don't exactly know why he chose that hotel, maybe because it was 10 minutes away from his home, but police believe his actions showed that he was looking for some kind of sexual encounter that Friday evening. So fast forwarding to the 17th, he goes to check into the hotel. A WhatsApp message is then sent to Ianella. It's Kosi. He says he's just booked a room at the hotel and that she should come meet him at the car park. She does. She can smell alcohol on his breath, but he isn't drunk. He proceeds to try and engage in sexual activities with her. He's agitated. She declines, and so the pair go their separate ways, although Ianella doesn't know that Kosi had previously checked into the hotel. Either way, Kosi drove off heading for Brighton in what's thought to have been him, looking for someone to have a sexual encounter with. However, he abandoned the trip and had London set in his sights. At roughly 8 PM, Kosi headed for a Sainsbury's store located within Kidbrooke Village, where he purchased chili powder, a rolling pin, and an energy drink. He then headed to Cater Park, where he could hide in the shadows. The public doesn't have access as to what happened next, but from police reports, we can get an idea of what went down when the paths of Kosi and Sabina crossed. At roughly 8:38 PM, Sabina had been walking down a path when a hooded man, or Kosi, passed her. He stopped, turned around, looked in her direction. She was oblivious. She kept walking. Then out of nowhere, Kosi sprinted towards her, and at the last moment, she turned around, but it was too late. Over the next few moments, Sabina would be subjected to 34 blows to the head by a car warning triangle, which would render her unconscious. It was that violent, the triangle had shattered into pieces. Then, in something straight out of a horror movie, Kosi decided to drag her along a grass slope out of sight of the camera. Some reports say he smothered her, others don't. Either way, what we do know is that he removed her tights and underwear, lifted up her clothes to expose the mid-lower part of her body, and then tried to hide her dead body using long grass in the area. Around 10 minutes later, Kosi is then picked up on CCTV again, picking up pieces of the weapon from the floor. He also used tissues to clean a bench where part of the attack took place. He then fled the scene, got into his car, and drove down a country lane in Tunbridge Wells to get rid of the murder weapon. He then returned back to his hotel room to get his head down for the night. The following afternoon, Sabina's lifeless body was discovered. So, the investigation was on to find the killer, and although police had CCTV footage of the attack, it was grainy. They couldn't make out who it was, so detectives spent several days examining hours of CCTV footage to see if they could identify the suspect. Now remember how Kosi had gone into Sainsbury's to purchase some pretty random items? Well, one of them wasn't so random, according to police anyway. The rolling pin. Detectives believed that the rolling pin was going to be the original murder weapon, but he had chose the warning light triangle instead as it was easier to conceal. But this warning triangle, believe it or not, would actually be the first domino to fall in the investigation. One eagle-eyed officer had noticed the fluorescent sign glimmering in the CCTV, and so they were able to focus in on that, which ultimately led to this video being released in an appeal to the general public. In the end, police used ANPR cameras, CCTV footage, mobile phone inquiries and general detective work to find their man, Kosi Selamaj, and arrested him on the 26th of September 2021. Upon arriving at his home address, blood-stained trainers were seized, that blood none other than Sabina Nessa's. He chose to remain silent, but after being charged, he decided to talk. He said, quote, "What will happen if I open up now and say everything?" After eventually pleading guilty to Sabina's murder, he would go on to be handed a life sentence with the minimum term of 36 years. We'll never truly know why Kosi went out and did what he did on that night. Even though he admitted to what he did, he never gave an explanation, and he never faced Sabina's family in court. They described him as a coward. What's more puzzling though is that Kosi went back to his normal life. He returned to his job at the garage, and one day before his arrest, he even contacted his wife to come over. Talking of that incident, she said he was acting normally. The only thing she noticed is that he had bought some new shoes. She said he never bought new shoes unless his old ones were ready for the trash, and of course, those old shoes did in fact have the blood of Sabina Nessa on them. We can only speculate on why he did this. Maybe he had a deep hatred for women. Maybe it was some kind of power move, or maybe it was his way of getting back for the rejection made by his wife earlier on that very same day. All could fit into a motive, but one thing I know for sure is Sabina never deserved this. She never asked to cross paths with this monster. He took away the life of an innocent woman for reasons unknown, someone who actually was going to have an impact on this world.